Well, we've been talking about serpents. We talked about the strange thing. Hazer had changed the serpent to an eagle. When you get to Numbers 21, a very strange event occurs. And the people were upset with God and against Moses because God had sent these fiery serpents. Fiery because it's a way of describing a poisonous serpent from the burning effects of the poison. But these serpents were killing people, and Moses went to God, and God said, people came to Moses, of course, and said, "We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against thee. Pray unto the Lord that he take away the serpents from us." And so Moses prayed for the people. The Lord said unto Moses, "Make thee a fiery serpent, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live." So we have this strange event. They're to make a serpent out of brass, put it on a pole on top of a hill. Everybody that looks to that would be healed. Now, it's funny how God always uses these strange remedies. And why? Why did God do it? Nowhere in the Old Testament is that explained. Nowhere is, why that peculiar remedy? And it's a serpent of brass, okay, which is copper or bronze technically, but okay. And everybody that looked to it lived. What a strange remedy. A serpent, isn't that a figure for sin or evil? Why is that doing here? And why brass? Well, that's the metal that could stain fire, so Leviticus, it's sort of idiomatic of a judgment. And you can search the entire Old Testament, not find an explanation of that anywhere. In fact, it proves to be a nemesis. When 1,000 years later, when we get to the days of Hezekiah, they're worshiping this thing. It's still around in 2 Kings 18. See, Hezekiah was a good guy. He did what was right in the sight of the Lord. He removed the high places and so forth. But in those days, the children of Israel did burn incense to this thing. And so Hezekiah calls it Nehushtan, a thing of brass. He destroys it because they're worshiping it like a fetish or something. A piece of brass. You know, it's interesting, from that event, back in Numbers 21, we get some legends in Greek mythology and elsewhere that lead to the rod of Asclepius, which is a symbol for medicine, as you've seen on license plates and in logos and so forth. In America, it's kind of funny because whoever picked the emblem inadvertently didn't pick the emblem of Asclepius. He picked the wand of Hermes, which is two of these. That's the symbol for the god of commerce. I'm always amused when I see a doctor with that on his license plate, that he's showing an allegiance to the god of commerce rather than the god of healing. But he may not be sensitive to the difference between the caduceus and the Asclepius. But we'll go on here. The real question is, why is this in the Old Testament? 1 Corinthians 10 tells us, "Now all these things happen to them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come." The word examples there in the Greek is tupos, or type. It's a type. It's an anticipatory type. And we don't see any explanation of this until Nicodemus meets Jesus Christ that night. When you get to John chapter 3, see, all this is a pattern. It's a prefiguring, if you will. And in the New Testament, Jesus explains to Nicodemus, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so must the Son of Man be lifted up. And Jesus announces that this was an anticipatory symbol or type back in Numbers 21. That whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have eternal life. So Jesus is building a type on that Numbers 21 event that he identifies himself with in John chapter 3. In fact, not only that, it leads to the most famous Bible verse in the entire Bible. Because he goes on and he says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." Most famous Bible verse is Jesus' response to his explanation in Numbers 21.